Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to welcome you to this GIZ Rural Development Knowledge Series. This is where we share information, experiences, and knowledge in the different areas of our implementation. And I want to welcome you this afternoon, those that are in the house and those that are online. Sustainable pest management is key for smallholder farmers. But we understand so much the role of development players in doing this, the role of research, and also the role of private sector to support smallholder farmers in pest management. Therefore, we have Mr. Moses from Vermipro. We have Dr. Alex Mayamba from NARO, especially from the research section. And I'm also privileged to have Mr. Albert Wamagale from the GIZ here in Uganda. But I want to give them a chance to briefly introduce themselves and also tell us their roles and also their contribution to the EcoPM or Agroecological Pest Management project in Uganda. Starting with you, Moses.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon, participants. My name is Moses Huru. I work as the General Manager for Vermipro Limited. We're a private sector company here in Uganda, specifically producing organic agricultural inputs, including solutions for pest management. Thank you.
Thank you. To you, Alex.
Good afternoon, viewers. Alex Mayamba is my name from NARO, that's National Agricultural Research Organization, but specifically based at Kawanda, which is National Agricultural Research Laboratories. NARO has been phased in different angles, so each institute handles different things. So Kawanda is best for handling things concerning laboratories. On this particular concern that has brought us here, I was the focal person on implementing most of the activities in Uganda. So I'm happy to be here and to share all the experiences and all the outputs that we got from this project.
You're welcome, Dr. Alex. And to you, Albert.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Jeffrey. You did introduce yourself, but I think I'll help you introduce you. No. My name is Herbert Wamagale, and today I sit here as an advisor on the Agroecological Innovations for Smallholder Pest Management, which we called EcoPM in short. But I'm also out of this portfolio. I also come in as an advisor on the Alliance for Product Quality, which is part of the AFC-FTA model, an African Union program. Yeah, good to be here.
Thank you, Albert, and thank you for introducing me again. My name is Geoffrey Oba. I work for the GIZ Promoting Rural Development Program in Uganda, in northern Uganda, PRODEV, as agriculture and climate specialist, and I'm happy to steer this discussion with our discussions here, but with you, the audience online and also physically in this room. To kickstart the discussion with you, Albert, we want to understand what is or what was the EcoPM project all about?
Thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you for asking that question. That's a very good question. The EcoPM project, some of you perhaps could have seen it somewhere written either on my shirt or seen it in the flyer that went around. The EcoPM project the EcoPM is actually an acronym for Agroecological Innovations for Smallholder Pest Management. This happened in Malawi, Zambia, but also here in Uganda. And maybe I could say also how this project came up. It's an initiative that came from the Innovations for Agriculture, I4Ag. Those of you who know that acronym, I4Ag, and it was steered by the colleagues in Zambia. But then, as the Uganda office, we also had, as a regional project, Uganda also had its own part to undertake under this, and the aim was to promote sustainable pest management with a focus. Of course, we can't be everywhere. With a focus on maize and fall armyworm management in maize. I don't know if any of us knows what we call fall armyworm. Those of you who could have seen it, just search it somewhere. You could see how nice they the pest looks like.
Okay. But of course, thanks, Albert. As the EcoPM project, you said there were issues, there were challenges. And what actually happened with the wool?
As IFOAG, one of the things they looked into was it's of course innovations for agriculture.
Yeah.
So as part of supporting innovations, one of the things that was arising was, first of all, increased health issues among humans. Of course, this is something that we all know, that excessive consumption of chemicals leads us into having different health
issues.
health challenges.
Yeah.
So there were health challenges, but also very key is that we also needed to look into the environmental aspects, ecological aspects. We maintain an ecological balance in a way that is sustainable. But also, maybe if I'm to bring it back to the country here for us in Uganda, is that we have a lot of we've had a lot of our export products actually rejected because of the existence of either excessive the poor quality of chemicals which have been labeled as hazardous, or we also have the aflatoxins that are within our products. So the coming in of this project was to actually see how do we address issues that are related to human health, environment, but also how do we improve the export quality or export competitiveness of our products here in Uganda. Yes.
Thanks, Albert. I understand in the form of the implementation, of course, we had GIZ, but we had NARO playing a very key research, but also steering role in it. And we also had the private sector like Vermipro coming in the implementation. But maybe to Alex, what were some of these innovations that were brought out, but also promoted within the program implementation?
Thank you. Just to go a bit back a bit, like the question you first asked him why this came about. You know, originally people used to grow maize. You go buy seed, plant, and then you wait to have to weed, and then you harvest. But 2016, we had an invasion of one of the pests, that's for armyworm. It's not a native of Uganda, it came from America. So due to the increased movement, trade, some of these pests are coming in. So once that came in, there was, of course, panic in the country. There was a lot of use of pesticides, chemicals. Government had to buy a lot of chemicals. And of course, over time, government couldn't continue buying chemicals for farmers. So the research and other development partners thought and started doing research to get innovations. So some of the innovations that were already developed, they were not being accessed by farmers. So this project came in to avail some of these innovations to the farmers, to build the capacity of these farmers so that they understand and then start deciding on which innovation to go for and which innovation not to go for. Like you also understand that there is increasing concern by the generation that we are in to consume safer foods. So this project came in to provide that loop that was missing. People need safe food, but how do you grow the safe food? So this project wanted to answer that. So some of the innovations that we fronted are basically preventive, but also they are sustainable in a way that once a farmer gets access to this innovation, he doesn't need to continue going back to the market to buy some of these. So for the chemical component, someone has to continue going to the market. So some of the innovations that were very key in this were the use of biologicals. We will talk about deeper in the biologicals, but some of them are the natural enemies. These are, for us, we call them the farmer's friend. Or we can call them the farmer's soldier. The farmer is sleeping, but the innovation is working for him. So these are small insects that can help to fight the enemy, that's the fall armyworm, while the farmer is sleeping. But also others, we deployed what we call the push-pull. This is a habitat kind of management where you use companion crops to help repel the pests from the garden, the main garden. Then, of course, the crop remains intact without being affected.
You pick and say, this was very successful. This is my takeaway. This is the success story that I can plainly talk about. And really, this can be scaled or something else can happen about it.
Thanks, Geoffrey. I think as I come to that question of the successes, perhaps allow me dive a bit into how maybe the approaches that we actually used into this whole process. Then we can pick into whether there are actually successes on the other side. So very key and very central in the work that we're doing was establishing multi-stakeholder partnerships with the different players who have already been in the space. And when we talk about this topic of pests and pest management, there are already established institutions that are out there. We have the FAO that was already doing a lot of work in that space. We had companies like Kabi. Kabi, those of you who know what it is, and then we have ISIPE. These were very key institutions in this process. As GIZ, yes, we are technical experts, but we are not experts in pest management as is. So it was very important that we put our expertise with that of the institutions that are actually very focused on scientific research, like the CGI, like Kabi, FAO. We also met with Senecal. We've also done some work with different platforms in country, like Uganda Forum for Agricultural Advisory Services. Because then our target, we're looking at both the private, but also the extension service providers as entry points for pushing or for disseminating, multiplying this information to the different target points that we had at hand. So besides those multi-stakeholder engagements, we also had capacity building. Capacity building was done at different levels for the communities who we call the private extensionists at the community level, but also under the Promoting Rural Development Program, we had extensionists who we call community-based extensionists or farmer-based extensionists. So these were very central in passing on this information also. So we did a lot of exposure visits. We had to do actual trainings, and at the helm of all this, we're looking at how do we make sure the women engaged in the process of production of agricultural products are also elevated, either in terms of increasing the amount of income, the incomes that they have, but also looking at their safety as the key handlers of these of the pest management process on a day-to-day within communities. So we looked at capacity building, but also we looked at issues like information and dissemination in communities. And one thing I would look at as a very key success.
Maybe even, just first of all on there, before you even talk about the success, Alex has talked about the role of NARO in this, and he took lead actually in the implementation. But then here we see VermiPro coming in, a private sector company. I think even before we talk about the success, it's important we first know, how did they come about? Why were they part of the implementation? For instance, why was the private sector important? So, Moses, from your side of VermiPro, what was your role and why do you think it was important to be part of the implementation?
Thank you, moderator. As key partners in implementation of this project, the private sector is actually at the center. Because when you talk of technologies, you talk of solutions, NARO can develop a solution, but NARO will not have the capacity to keep on with this solution, to industrialize it so that all farmers access it. We as members of private sector, we pick interest in solutions that people are willing to pay for. So if this works for farmers, we take the technologies, we're able to multiply it to reach as many farmers. Secondly, we don't only multiply and reach the farmers, but reaching farmers is our day-to-day business. We do offer private extension because farmers must be trained on how to use these new products. You can't leave this to government because the process may be too long, yet the solution is needed. So we are there, our extension team are always there with the farmers on a day-to-day basis, demonstrating practically. We put up agro input shops where the farmers can access these technologies, and we are able to advise them appropriately because we want to work with them over and over. So basically, our role was to scale what some of the technologies, especially the biopesticides, because these have very long shelf life. You can find a product that can stay on shelf for up to 3 years. So we are able to extend this, and I can boldly report that our sale, for example, for biopesticides went up to the extent at a certain point some of our outlets would not have the products, but at least yes, we produced more and we restocked them.
So can we say from your side of the private sector, that was one of the success on your side? In the process of being working together with GIZ, but also working together with the NARO. Then I now come back to the project implementation as well, to you, Albert. My previous question on the issues to do with what really stood out for you in the implementation.
Well, thanks, Jeffrey. I think one very key issue that stood out for us when it comes to project implementation is the fact that these innovations that we're actually having were touching the people on ground, even ourselves. Because as we go out to buy maize or whatever, we're never conversant of how much, whether it is organically, whether they've worked on, used organic chemicals on it or not. Yes. So when we were there with the communities, there was a lot of opening up about the actual dangers of the chemicals, the agrochemicals that we're actually having, with the extent of women coming out to mention certain inefficiencies in from their partners, and that's not something we took very lightly. It means these are things that are really living with the people. So for us as GIZ, having to look at communities being able to adopt, and they actually embrace these technologies. When you look at the push-pull technologies, which I think Dr. will talk about in detail, it looked at bringing in, it's also a feed for livestock. So many communities that are also looking at livestock as some of the products as feed for livestock really benefited from this. They also were able to sell this and actually generate extra incomes. Those of you who have been to some of these communities, you actually realize, actually, I think 80% are actually the women. Of course, the men always came up whenever there's distribution of tangible, like you're giving out traps. That's when you see the gentlemen more. But the women were actually at the center of the implementation of this. So for us to look at that as a very key positive, there was an embrace from the district local governments, but also the ministries in terms of appreciating the efforts of that we're actually putting in place, targeted towards sustainable pest management.
And as we go on with the discussion, I will request our online audience that please feel free to post your questions in the chat so that once we give the time, our discussants will be in a position to answer some of the questions, but also those in the room will, if you have any question also, you can have it ready. Then we go on with as we go on with the discussion. You have highlighted some of the key successes. Women working on to embrace technologies like push and pull, selling the materials, earning extra income from the technology itself, but also protecting their fields and increasing their productivity, which is very, very important. I want to come to the side of research from you, Alex. Yes. Also being a very key partner in sustainable pest management. And you were part of the implementation with the NARO as an institute. What really stood out for you from your side? And I think also we need to bring the perspective of then, of course, I know we were not alone in the field, but we had the farmers themselves, but we know we also have public extension in the communities. And we have people like Vermipro and their networks of agro-input dealers coming on board that he has talked about, but from the point of research.
Okay, thank you so much. Just to give a brief background, we are looking at sustainable pest management, and we are looking at agroecological innovations. I want the viewers to have a clear cut. Agroecological innovations are different from the conventional chemical pesticides. The other ones offer knockdown, immediate effect. These ones don't offer immediate effect. So when you talk about success, it might not come immediately, like someone would want to go and buy a rocket product from the shop, sprays and gets the immediate effect. This takes some time. So to me, during the implementation of the project, we are still recording success up to now. Because we, like I talked about, the innovations that we fronted, they are biologicals. So you give them time to establish in the environment, because we are looking at how do we control the pests and also conserve the environment without affecting anything. So one of the things that we are more interested in, or what we worked on so much, was the natural enemies. During the implementation, we are able to set up a laboratory in Kawanda, which is fully functional, and it is multiplying these biologicals. So that was success to mean that some people can access the biologicals from Kawanda, because now the lab is there. Before the project came in, it wasn't there. So they import them from maybe Nairobi, but now we are able to multiply them from here. But moving away from that, and this project, the way it was implemented, we had 4 outputs that we are looking at. We are looking at equipping or making available the innovations, training the farmers to be able to make informed decisions on what to get and not to get. But also we wanted to generate scientific evidence so that people can appreciate and say this innovation works or it doesn't work. Of course, he talked about equipping the women so that in the communities there, people can access these innovations. So one thing that we were able to do, we kept on collecting data. So at some point in Tororo, we worked in 8 districts across the country, in the north and then the east. But in the east, in one particular district that was Tororo, when we were implementing at that time, we went there and found most of the maize gardens were affected by the fall armyworm. So we had to release these biocontrol agents. So at that stage, we were able to collect that as well. So when we collect that as scientists, we take that information back to the lab and we would assess like the percentage of, if you collected egg masses from the garden, what percentage will emerge into fall armyworm. At that stage, we were able to get like 80% of the eggs that were collected. After doing that, we call it pre-assessment before you release the parasitoids. So when we released the parasitoids, we had to go back after like a month. So we collected the same egg masses after we've introduced the parasitoids. At that stage, all the eggs that we brought, 60% emerged into the parasitoids. That means those eggs would not emerge into fall armyworm. That to us, it was a success because the parasitoids were able to establish wherever we released them. Just one of the success.
Thanks, Alex. And what you have highlighted, of course, speaks to why it is important to manage pests sustainably. And you have highlighted that, yes, we are talking about agroecological pest management, but we are talking about sustainable ways. And that means it's not something that can be registered today, but it's something coming after a long period of time. But we're also aware it is also not very easy to sustain successes. All right? It's not easy to sustain successes, but also it is important to scale the successes. Okay? These 2 issues. And I want to, from the point of program implementation from your side, Albert, what were some of the initiatives or what is happening or what has been done to really sustain some of these successes, but also to scale these innovations, for instance, before we talk about some of the key lessons learned as we take up some of these innovations?
I think looking at the modes of sustainability that we actually adopted in our way of work from the start, our sustainability initiative started from the start, was to look at how do we bring in the public sector, the public extension system, to see how they actually come in to work with the private extension system that we have in place. Let's say like those under PRUDEV, but also other institutions also had private, different NGOs or institutions have extensionists in community. So and the idea of this was to have more of a landscape approach towards this sustainable pest management rather than having it at a very household level. Because then for instance, when you look at the parasitoids, they actually spread from my farm, they go to the next one and to the next one. So that's why we brought in the model of bringing in both private and the public extensionists, so that the government is able to actually also take this up if they appreciate it, and they actually appreciated it. And I think there's a lot of integration within existing like PDM programs and other programs, priority value chains that government has actually identified. There are those actually within the fruit sector who have actually been in touch with NARO, I think, and also VermiPro, others within coffee, trying to also see that they actually take up some of these technologies, maybe not all of them at once, but picking either of that which was actually interesting to them. So that for us is something that we saw as very important. The other part that was very important is how do we bring in the private sector? Because then much as we're also trying to promote the communities to be able to make own formulations. They can get neem, they can get either lemon, garlic or whatever and mix it up. But that is also not sustainable because then these are also very expensive to get in community. How much garlic do you need to pound to spray a whole acre? So these are very expensive aspects that we also felt perhaps, yes, they are good, but they're also not economically viable. So that's why we felt it's important to have an arrangement with private actors. And private actors, we engage them formally, but also informally. Informally, there are other companies which are not here. We actually had like trade shows where we could support their participation. Even during dialogues, we support their participation so that people are able to know about their products, also get feedback from the different users of this. But then formally, we actually operationalize the IDPP. Some of you, I don't know who have engaged with it. It's an integrated development partnership with the private sector. It's a tool that we engage when it comes to private sector engagements. So that's the one we operationalized with Vermipro Limited. And we felt this was also very important because then they would carry on either all or some of the developments that we have. On the other side, Naro, as we talk, we established actually a laboratory with Naro. That laboratory was meant to support production. I'm sure the laboratory is still there because Dr. Alex is actually, we were talking about it earlier. It's actually there and it is still supporting not mainly the parasitoids, but also other biological predators or biocontrol agents that are actually out there. So that laboratory is there, and we felt by talking to government to find a way of taking it over was something that we looked at as a sustainability venture. Yeah, those are the three that I could point into. Yeah.
Thanks, Herbert. Yes. What I got from your submission are two very key important things, which I want just to re-emphasize. Yeah. It's important to strengthen the demand side.
Yes.
The people that are going to use the different innovations, like the parasitoids we're talking about and the biopesticide, but also strengthen the supply side. Because yes, as projects, GIZ is not in any way part of, but there's the demand side, which are the farmers, and the supply side, which are in the groups of the Vermipros and others that you said were supported in the trade show, which is very important to note. And looking at from the side of the private sector, Moses, just in relation to what Albert has talked about, in terms of, yes, you have been engaged as a private sector, how would you want to sustain this engagement throughout?
Okay, thank you. As a business, we are a going concern, and in whatever we do, we want to exist past tomorrow.
Yeah.
So sustainability may not be our language, but in practice, we have to do. So for us, this comes in from a number of partnerships, because we can't work without the regulators who are the government. So in whatever we do, we are so closely engaged with government. And that again splits into the different government institutions. Some research work we also do with NARO to validate some of our technologies. When it comes to licensing, there's another department that does that. When it comes to access to these products, we work closely with local governments. You can't go to a district and you start preaching when the agricultural officer doesn't know what you're bringing on board and so on. So we still work with government at the local government level. We work with a number of NGOs. Yes, in this particular project, GIZ supported us on a number of activities, and we do appreciate so much because we're able to have radio programs. We had a lot of dialogues. We had farmer field days, and in those, we would invite people non-exclusively, whether it is NGOs or CBOs or churches, community leaders, smallholder farmers. Some of these actually happen to be at the roadside. So those would be driving, they can still stop, they learn, they ask questions, And I believe that has really helped us to move along. And also, we are not saying as a private sector company, we should be the only one strong. We cannot do A to Z of the value chain. Somewhere along the way, you find we are also working with a lot of other private sector companies, like those who are agents stocking our products across different districts. Some they are taking regional level, some are just farmer groups or cooperatives. So we work with all these people in whichever way they come and at whichever capacity they are in.
Thanks, Moses. You said issues, the language, I want just to repeat, sustainability is not in your language, but it's a must.
It is
Because a business has to remain beyond tomorrow, beyond the project. And that is very important for every form of business that engage in supporting smallholder farmers. But also on the side of the importance of research, look at the different innovations, looking at the setup that has been done through the project. From your side, Dr. Alex, what is in your mind in the plan in terms of scaling, but also in terms of sustaining these innovations and making sure they are really out there constantly?
Okay, thank you so much once again. In technology adoption, there are three processes that are looked at. One, the characteristics of the innovation that you front into the farmers. Two, you're looking at the farmer, the characteristics of the farmer. Then, of course, the environment that you're working in. So as NARO, our mandate is to do research. The private sector, they of course roll out the innovations.
Yeah.
Now for us, what we see is once we introduce now like a parasitoid, first, what is important to note here is we brought the parasitoid in the country because initially it wasn't. We couldn't tell that it's here or it's not there. And then during the process of implementing the project, farmers were trained. So our farmers now understand that when you find an egg which is looking like that, an egg mass, this is parasitized, so you cannot touch it. You have your soldiers ready in the field.
Yeah.
So we feel that during the trainings, we were able to build capacity of the farmers, first of all. We started with the agriculture extension workers or agriculture advisors who we think they are ambassadors in the communities there, who can help communities that didn't receive direct interaction with us. So this can continue spreading the gospel within the different communities. Like I said, because agroecology is time, it needs time to catch up with how it will work. So we thought once we equip the agriculture advisors in the communities, those will stay as our ambassadors in there. So they are doing what we can't do. Even when the project has ended, at least we know people are still there. Because sometimes they call us and they say, can we get these parasitoids?
Yeah.
Even if the project is not there that we can drive a pickup to that place, you can just put it on a bus and then the person can receive that. So we think sustaining this, as long as we left the people who are trained, they understand this, they are able to make informed decision now that we have even a private sector. Because that's one of the biggest challenges that we face.
Yeah.
People keep asking, where do we get this? You tell us real IPM is in Chambogo. How do we access? We are in Palisa. So the private sector was able to get on ground. So at least now they know they have the task to set up small outlets in the different areas.
Yeah.
So our task was to introduce these innovations, then the private sector can now see how to reach the different parties.
Yeah, thank you. And I think, of course, this is very important for scaling, as you have talked about, the importance of the private sector, the importance of research, but also the support of development players in really bringing in innovation that supports smallholder farmers. I will come back to our discussants later, but I want to check from our online audience whether we have some questions at the moment, but I will give you time to really later on talk about some of the lessons learned, but also some of your key takeaways, not just parting shots. We are not going to part from this. we remain players in sustainable pest management. So it's not going to be parting shots, but it's going to be really what you would encourage. I want to check with our producers if we have some questions online already. at the moment? Okay, so these questions are going to come at the end, but from within the house, do we have any question at the moment? All right. So, we have one question. Please go ahead.
Then Rana, there's quite a lot that has been said, but in the line of looking at this, the pesticides, to my knowledge, the government phased out most of these pesticides. And one of them that I want to look at is mancozeb, which is one for maybe vegetables, and it's against blight. And then maybe down mildew or something. So my question comes in a way that in prevention, when you look at this pesticide, it's a contact pesticide. It's used for protection. And then one of the people that was presenting talked about prevention. How is the technology going to help in a way that in a way that most of these things were brought up, and he talked about the spread, minimizing the spread. But then I didn't get much of the part of the preventative methods that we might need to work on this. Because looking at the weather that we have in Uganda, the weather here sustains most of these pesticides. So how are we going to work around that and find a solution to that? Thank you.
Thank you, Rona, for that question. I know the experts are here. We have talked about other measures, but we have not discussed about the preventive. Okay? Maybe from the side of research, your response on this question.
Okay, thank you so much. You've talked about some of these pesticides being banned. And I think for us, actually on our side, that's a positive. Because once they ban this, then VermiPro will have market for the products. Otherwise, if they don't ban them, then we'll be competing with them, which is another thing. So I talked about the preventive kind of measures. If you listen carefully, the 4 innovations that we talked about, actually most of them are I can call them preventive. If I can go in deep in the push-pull technology, which is using companion plants, you have 2 plants that you plant, one in the main garden, then another you put it at the boundary. So one in the main garden pushes the insects from the main garden. Then the one at the boundary attracts these pests from the main garden. So in that way, it is doing a preventive measure in that you don't allow the pest population to grow to reach that economic injury level. Because agroecology doesn't look at eradicating the pests, but it suppresses the population to an acceptable level that can be in the ecosystem but doesn't cause damage to the crops. So the innovations that we fronted, the 4 of them, they look at reducing the population over time, then the crops shall be able to survive even when there is that small population that is still within the environment. So when you use push-pull technology, you're doing a preventive measure. Over time, you will see the population has gone down and you can have pest-free crops. I can just give you an example. There is a project that is running currently. It is SPSS, that is Sanitary Phytosanitary Systems. We are trying to create what we call low pest prevalence sites, so that when someone is exporting produce into European markets, Ministry of Agriculture can clearly say this product is coming from one area that is of low pest prevalence. So they will accept it without doing all the necessary stringent measures. So when we put the traps, they are going to reduce the population over time. So when they do that, over time you will find that the population is very minimal. It cannot cause damage to your crops. So all the 4 innovations, the traps, those are looking at the population trends, the push-pull technology, then the parasitoids, of course, for them, they should be in the environment to reduce the population of the fall armyworm. So in that way, you will not need to go and buy the pesticide. You will just realize the problem is no more. You go back to the earlier systems where you just grow crops and then you just wait to harvest without thinking of, now let me go to the shop and buy this other product. But Vampro maybe can add something on that.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Rona, for your question. I think the challenge we're talking about here is mainly fungus, because mancozeb is a fungicide, which, like you said, is contact-based. So ideally, there are a lot of solutions that can work on these different fungal diseases. For example, if you talk of so many crops, maybe in coffee, we have a lot of contact-based fungicides which can work on that, tomatoes and so on. We have already some organically certified, but the one you're talking of here, like now, if you look at controlling blight, Vermipro has also a natural formulation of a contact-based fungicide, which is preventive. It is very effective on controlling blight on tomatoes and potatoes, Irish. But the challenge we are still having is that we are undertaking the required efficacy studies, because yes, you can try with the farmers, it's working, but the regulator does his own independent study. Hopefully, maybe by end of this year, once it is done, we can then go very commercial. But I can report we've tried out with a few farmers, including up Kapshora side. It is so far giving good results. So the solutions are there.
Yeah.
And in addition to what Doctor was saying, and agroecology, sometimes the farmers just need knowledge on what to do and what not to do.
Yeah.
Because most times, if we do the prevention, the cost of managing our gardens would be so low. By the time farmers leave the crop, by the time they go to look for fungicide, blight is almost wiping out 70% of the crop. And when blight sets in most cases, that is a total loss. You may need to reconsider another season. But solutions are there, and we believe we shall avail more. Yeah.
Thank you, Moses. So, friends, we find that there is a very clear-cut difference between conventional measures, which is a straight and direct, using, of course, the inorganic pesticide, and sustainable or agroecological pest management. So the perspective, the most important perspective that we talked about here is agroecological. You're not just looking at the pest, but you're also looking at environment, we're also looking at health, and that's why it is slow but reactive. Slow and sustainable, I would say. Yeah, thank you. We have one question also from the audience. Please, you will introduce yourself as well.
My name is Daniel Chikimira. I'm the GIZ cadre focal point. And my question to the panelists, especially the doctor and the private sector representative, is in line with any learnings that inform policy decisions, especially, for instance, one of the components under the Comprehensive Africa Agriculture Involvement Program, which feeds into the agro-industrialization program of the country as a national framework, which speaks to analytics and diagnostics. And I believe that the data actually being shared was coming from the field to the lab was informing a lot of decisions for the implementation project. But then my curiosity is around what policy recommendations would you see to inform and influence the agro-industrialization strategy, improvements or reviews in the country? And to the private sector, the same question. What policy aspects would you see on the inform the improvement of the national agricultural strategy investment plan in respect to investing into marketable, interesting programs like development of sustainable pest control.
Thank you, Daniel. I want just to add something to the question that Daniel asked to Dr. Alex about what is the future of agroecological pest management. in Uganda from the point of research? In addition to the question that Daniel has asked.
Okay, thank you, Daniel. The policy reforms. Recently, I was reading a paper by one of the authors, and it was looking at birationals, the challenges and the barriers as to why they are not working or why we are not breaking through. And one of the things that they pointed out, of course, they were comparing the developed worlds and then our country like Uganda. Yeah. And when you look at the developed world, they are growing more interest in such products. And their policies are kind of favorable. For example, like he's talking about registering that product. Right now, the policy that we have takes biologicals as the other conventionals. Like if you were to register that product, you have to go the same process like what the conventional people do. The developed world, they have switched away from that. They give at least that kind of, they give you that option of not being so strict to register biologicals as compared to the conventions, because they are interested in this. Yeah. So for the biologicals, actually most of the companies, the private companies, they are struggling because the cost itself to register this product is very high. So in most cases, they end up not registering products and they end up selling them at background doors, non-registered products. So one of the policy reforms that should come out clearly, if the government is to appreciate that we need to go biologicals, is to reduce on some of the stringiness of registering biologicals as compared to the conventional products. Because if they move at the same pace, then the other ones are already at an advanced stage, so they can easily overcompete the biologicals. So reforms have to come in that angle. And I think over time, I think we had even, during that implementation, we engaged a private sector that did an analysis of the potential entries for the biologicals into the market. And some things came out clear. I don't know where the report was submitted or MAIF has taken it on. So MAIF, I think, is over time and again, they are being talked with. We are engaging MAIF together with the private sector so that they can reduce on those stringiness on the registration of these products. Because if that happens, then we'll have so many companies coming in to register biologicals as compared to the others. That's what I would think. And talking about the future, I see a future in this, especially now that we are having even these laws that are coming in, like the EUD policy that is reducing on the cutting of the trees and also knowing where the products are coming from. So when we start looking at such scenarios, that means government is going to develop more interest in biologicals, because now where we are selling the products, they are interested in getting safer products. So the only way for us to survive and be in the market is to promote the biologicals. So I see a future in this.
Thank you, Dr. Alex. Maybe as we come to Moses, I would request our audience that, yes, we're supposed to end at 15:30. I would request an additional 5 minutes so that we have some few online questions. But for now, let me have Moses respond to the question from Daniel.
Okay, thank you so much, Daniel. Regarding the policy decisions that would really positively impact the agricultural sector, I think at AU level, we should start acting. At least I've been in a number of forums, including the Fertilizer Summit. I was in Nairobi. I attended a different summit in Zimbabwe. All they preach the same thing, but back into action, nothing. I'll give one example. If you go to Europe, you find the policies are standard. If you talk of a fertilizer, there's clear description what a fertilizer is, whether it is organic or chemical, what should comprise that. And if a product meets that requirement, it's approved for European market. Why is it that here in Africa, I have to spend a lot of money, like Dr. said, to register a product here in Uganda, the same product which would help farmers in Kenya, I go and repeat the process in Kenya, I repeat the process in Tanzania, then to Rwanda, then to Burundi. Then where are we heading to? EAC is not doing anything. AU level, there's nothing. There is something again called under the standardization of products in Africa. It's called what? There is that, I'm forgetting. There's a new standard of products for Africa. But still, that standard may work for consumables. When it comes to like inputs, which would actually accelerate agricultural productivity, the regulations are so segmented that any small player, unless you're maybe as big like Monsanto's, you cannot manage to penetrate the markets. And it is actually not making business sense.
Yeah.
That's all I can say.
Thank
You
you.
can't spend $100,000 here, you cross the 100,000, you've not sold 100,000, you go the other side, because there are few farmers who need it across. Yeah. So it is big, and the innovations, by the way, are too much. I can tell you, if you move in this country, at each district, you'll find there's an innovation that can solve this problem. So many of them, but people cannot come out with them because the regulation is just prohibitive. Thank you.
Thank you, Moses, for that highlights and responding to the policy questions together with Dr. Alex. I want to check with our online audience if there are some questions that are posted for now. Maybe Dixon, you will read for us some of those questions now.
Online. Oh, from Nathan.
Yeah.
Okay, let me unmute.
And please, I ask that you put your question straight and more precise because of time.
Nathan, please go ahead.
Nathan?
Unfortunately, I think it's better he types.
So I would request, Nathan, that please, you may, because of the gadget issues, you may type your questions in the chat so that we can respond to. As we wait for more questions to come in.
Yes, there are a number of questions in the chat. Thank you,
Yeah.
Geoffrey, and the rest of the colleagues for this afternoon. One of the questions is from Obuk Robert, who said, how can GIZ help a rural farmer access the right organic seeds or the right pesticides when there are a lot of fake products in the market? Thank you, Robert, for that question. Another one is from Timothy, who says, how has the project implementations or results influenced national policy decisions in regards to the green economy? That is from Timothy. Then we have another question from Nathan. I think this is a result. One of the big achievements of the project was developing knowledge products, for example, a radio script for the fall armyworms management based on the 4 innovations that were promoted by the project is in place. So that was, he also gave, Nathan also gave a result of the project in itself. We have another question from Moses, who says there is always a missing link between the research and the public extension when it comes to dissemination of new technologies. NARO engages the farmers directly, leaving out the extension workers who are the foot soldiers who should take over and continue advising the farmers after the project. Then we have Garang Nai, who has also typed in a number of questions. Number one of his questions is, given the increasing threat of pests, in brackets quarantine and climate-induced pest dynamics, what role do public-private partnerships envision for organizations such as Hortifresh Association in accelerating the validation, commercialization, and dissemination of biological control products and integrated pest management solutions across Uganda's horticulture value chain? That's from Garang. Another question is from Garang. What evidence is available on the economic performance and scalability of the EcoPM innovations compared to conventional pest management products, pest management, particularly regarding yield, production costs, return on investment, and adoption by smallholder farmers? Garang is a senior agronomist and business development lead at Hortifresh Association. Then we have another question from Timothy. We are seeing increased use of pesticides in the agricultural sector as well as increase in prevalence of non-communicable diseases, cancer, diabetes, Parkinson's, etc. in the health sector. How was this done? Have we done any research, any local research to demonstrate the relationship between the two? Yes. So, colleagues, those are the questions online.
Thank you, Dixon. I know we have had the questions, and I would start with Albert on the questions that are coming to the project. How can the project help the community's access genuine products, genuine inputs, including this kind of innovations? But also, do you think this project influences policy? And then that will also come to Dr. Alex in terms of if this project has influenced policy.
Thanks, Jeffrey. Those are very good questions. Thank you so much for these questions. Some of these are actually very good comments and areas for us to also think about deeply. But I'll start with the part where how GIZ can support in terms of access to quality products. GIZ, as we do our work, one of the things I think we are guided by certain rules of engagement when it comes to private sector engagements. Some of these, there are rules, some I call them rules, but because then they guide us in terms of also avoiding to cause disruptions in the market systems. Yes? And some of the tools that we actually employed with the private sector, like VermiPro, and then the others like Real IPM, we also had Plant Village. The idea was to open up these companies to be able to reach out to the communities at the lowest level possible.
Yeah.
Particularly when it comes to biopesticides, because these are very sensitive technologies. So we line up with the companies. We actually connect the companies to the communities. VermiPro is actually here. Purposely because we had an IDPP with them, but there are a lot of other companies out there that are at the center of production and marketing of agroecological innovations.
Yeah.
So as GIZ, we cannot say, you go to VermiPro and do business with them. No, we just show you that there is space. Now you as the communities or as the clientele are required to actually provide feedback and have an interface. We actually encourage VermiPro to establish contact with the people that they have, so that they can provide quality products. But we may not go into providing actual direct verification and say this product is good, this one is not very good. The other part, when it comes to push-pull technology, we worked with ICIPE at NARO. ICIPE is the International Center for Insect Physiology and Ecology, whereby we had the push-pull technologies, and we had Bracharia and Desmodium in the communities. And the idea was, with support from NARO and ICIPE, the communities were able to have this Bracharia and Desmodium grown in the best way possible. And the idea was for the communities out there to be able to access these high quality products from within their communities. So, and then when it comes to things like the parasitoids, that's why ICIPE came in, because we cannot have parasitoids being multiplied at the community level because of the sensitivity that they actually carried. So those are some of the ways in which we said, okay, maybe for people to be able to acquire better quality materials, planting materials, let's try these options. So as GIZ, that's the level at which we're looking at. When it comes to the green economy, there's a question on green economy and how the project has influenced progress towards the green economy at a national level. We have been at the forefront of discussions in different extension forums like the Uganda Forum for Agricultural Extension Services, where they have annual extension meetings on discussions regarding the different sustainability, agroecological, agri-system transformations. So a lot of discussions on sustainable pest management have been at the center of this. And this forum actually brings on board a lot of researchers from the academia, from the extension system, from the development space. So I think the level of influence we've been having at that level, even with the ministry, is having to talk about sustainable pest management. How we operationalize integrated pest management, not looking at only organic agriculture, but looking at a trade-off between, looking at a blend between the conventional but also the organic sustainable management. Because at the end of the day, there are things, there are advantages that the conventional has, and then the advantages that the organics have. So how do we get a trade-off between the two of them?
Yeah,
Yes,
thanks, Herbert, for answering those questions. I will come back to you in your conclusions. And since we are pressed by time, I will give Dr. Alex 2 minutes to answer some of the questions, to try to answer some of the questions. But please, for our audience, please note that we continue this discussion. Since it's a live discussion, this will be posted somewhere. We continue with this discussion and we conclude. So in 2 minutes plus your conclusion, and also in 2 minutes plus your conclusion. Starting with Dr. Alex.
Okay, thank you. I will start with the policy issues. Someone asked how has EcoPM shaped the policy dialogues, if I could say. During the implementation of that project, we engaged ministry at different levels. Even at the closure of the project, we had, I think, the assistant commissioner. At the start, in the middle there, we engaged a commissioner, that is Department of Crop Inspection and Certification. This is the department that is directly responsible for this. And to me, I think the pressure that is coming around them is going to influence what they need to put into the different policies. Policy doesn't come on a single day because they keep gathering information from all over.
Yeah.
So me, I think this is going to come up soon or later, but at least the pressure that we created during the implementation period, and even now, I think it's going to force them at least to act because it's their mandate, that's the Ministry of Agriculture's mandate. So that's what I would think the project had the impact on that level. Then I want to just briefly respond to Garanga. This is my colleague from Hot Fresh. These are basically looking at export of fresh fruits and vegetables, and they are more even interested in getting these botanicals or biologicals because there is that stringiness in exporting crops that have not been used, but which have not been sprayed with chemicals. So he wanted to compare how can you compare EcoPM results and the conventional? And to me, as a scientist, I don't want to compare those two because one is immediate effect. You want to bring a chemical, you spray and it dies. Agroecology doesn't act like that. That's why it needs more training or giving people information. What are the advantages of this? Because it's long term. When you look at the ministry is putting in a lot of effort to train the farmers on how to wear when they are going to spray chemicals. Recently, we are in Ginger, and one farmer came on our store. We are telling them about the safe handling of chemicals and use. And the farmer plainly said, no, I understand all those things, but I cannot do. So that clearly shows you that people are using chemicals recklessly. So anything that keeps away farmers from using these chemicals, that is a positive that you cannot compare with an increase in yield maybe immediately that you're going to see tomorrow. So I don't want to compare those two at that angle. Garang understands what we are doing with him on fruit flies and FCM, so he should be able to understand that. I don't know what else I need to add there.
Okay.
But that's what I could.
Thank you. And also maybe your conclusion.
My conclusion, I just want to start with us who are here. If we appreciate that we want to eat foods that are safe, let's walk the talk. If you go to a grocer and there is a product that is organic, you can part with that little increase and pay for it. That's what we call walking the talk. Otherwise, if we don't do that, we are going to continue using the other chemicals. But if it starts with us, the change starts with us here. If we appreciate this, we have seeds of Bracharia desmodium in Kawanda. Any of you who has a jaja, a grandmother in the village, you can pass by, you get these seeds, you can plant them and use push-pull as a technology. That's the only way we can achieve this.
Thank you, Dr. Alex. Moses.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I think I will only try to respond partly to Garan's concern on evidence of these EcoPM and so on. Honestly, if you are to do something sustainable, it requires consistency. It's not a one-day thing.
Yeah.
We are here, we've engaged these institutions, including HortiFresh. Some of the members are adopting these and using, and they're getting results. But some of the people who are also offering extension to these associations seem their minds are stuck to the conventionals. And actually, they are also not honest, because if you look at the requirement for export of what they claim to export, now residue level is required to 0, especially in Europe. Now, if the residue level should be 0, how do you spray chemical and achieve 0 residue level? It is just double standard. So people have to be honest here. The companies that are supporting you are available here. You can even sign conditional contracts and say, guys, come, we sign, you'll give me technical support, we monitor the farm properly, I'll be paying you partly as we walk the journey together. I think that's the only way. Otherwise, if we want to ask questions of classroom, it will not work on agriculture. Then my parting shots, I think on sustainable agriculture generally and producing safe food, it's a concern for all of us.
Yeah.
If you don't want to consume safe food, maybe think about your family and your relatives. And then the environment, because some people love these chemicals, but also on the other side, they don't know or they forget that if we use this a lot, our food production may reduce maybe up to 50%. If you don't have pollinators, what will it do? These guys will have to start breeding new species of bees to pollinate. So let's not complicate science and follow what is practical. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that submission. How about on your conclusion to this topic?
My conclusion is sustainability is not something that stops after, let's say, project ends.
Yeah.
And for us, bringing on board the private sector, who we look at as very central in this whole process, was very important. The private sector here, we're looking at they as the producers and marketers, but also looking at the people, the market, the consumers, you who are actually listening to us, plus others, you are the drivers of this.
Yeah.
If you do not drive this this sector to look at paying for the value of what it is, then perhaps we will end up paying for the cost of health thereafter.
So dear colleagues, we know, yes, we need the private sector, we need research, and development partners like GIZ support to provide information and the understanding of where can we get whatever we need, especially when it comes to agroecological pest management. We have got a lot of understanding from NARO. There are a number of innovations, there are a number of technologies. VermiPro has a lot of networks in terms of where they take the different products, and please feel free to get in touch with the NARO, feel free to get in touch with Dr. Alex, and also feel free to get in touch with Moses. From my side, I want to say thank you. The GIZ Rural Development Knowledge Series is going still to continue, and our next one is on the 30th of July, and we are going to talk about the CAADP Kampala agenda. And please be interested to really understand what CAADP is all about, and so that we share the information, but also we walk the talk. Thank you so much.